Alright, what's going on, everyone? We are here today at Nauset Beach in Orleans, Massachusetts. Why the heck are we here? Fine question. So 1918, July 21st, the small town of Nauset wakes up to find a German U-boat stationed off 3 miles offshore. Now this German submarine starts to launch an attack on a passing tugboat, sinks it. It also shoots shells over that land right here on the beach and then harmlessly into the dunes beyond. The German U-boat is then, there's an Air Force base fairly close. Planes fly out to drop some TNT upon the submarine. Another few rescue boats go out to rescue 32 sailors that were on the tugboat out there as the tugboat sinks along with the barges that it was towing behind it. Thus, this is the only spot in the continental United States that is attacked by the Germans during World War I. There's rumor that one of the local citizens here, as the U-boat was firing onto the shore, came out with their shotgun and started shooting at the submarine. We can't really know if that's more just local legend or fact, but it does make for a great story. However, while most of the United States during World War I, in fact all of the United States during World War I does not experience anything quite so exciting, the war does have a pretty strong effect on the country. And while they're not shooting at submarines 3 miles off the coast with a shotgun, there's a lot that does occur. So this video we're looking at the home front, what happens in the United States, World War I, how does that war affect the country? So one of the most widespread effects of World War I in the country is on business, is on the economy. We have something called the War Industries Board, which is created, and namely it is created so that businesses can be more productive. The government wants to produce as much whatever it's producing as it can, because most of that which is being produced is being used for the war effort. If it's ink for typewriters, so that dispatches can be sent, that's being affected, the production of ink, all the way to food production, can production, and obviously anything that has to do with weapons or machines. So the War Industries Board is created, and it's really encouraging this idea of mass production. Certainly it has been around, but remember, the industrialization of America is fairly new, so not all industries are on board with mass production. However, World War I really steps up that process, and really so that waste is not recurring. The United States is really trying to eliminate all waste, whether it's industrial food, we'll get to that in a little bit. It's increasing production across the United States by about 20%, which is a pretty huge increase. Not only is that increasing production, but if you own a business, your profits then are going to be increasing dramatically as well. The United States, since during the war, they really need to control a number of sensitive areas, especially when it comes to resources such as oil and coal, any metal production. So the United States is also trying to take control of railroads, anything that is essential to the war machine. They end up really controlling the production or distribution of those goods and materials. Daylight savings is created, which allows the U.S. to save a nominal amount of fuel so that people are awake when it's light. They're not using electricity when it's dark, thus trying to conserve as much resources as possible. Now, certainly while industrial production is up, the people that are working in it, if you are working in an industry which is essential to especially the war effort, you are not going to get drafted into the army as a soldier. However, when it comes to labor, the United States doesn't want any strikes to affect anything that's going to hurt the war. So they really are discouraging and in fact actively suppressing a lot of these labor movements. It's this idea of worker fight. If you're not going to work, if you're going to go on strike, then we're going to send you over to fight in Europe. That said, the government does recognize it needs happy workers, so it does really encourage and force a lot of businesses to improve their working conditions, encouraging this 8-hour workday so that the workers are not overwhelmed, making sure that safety standards are higher than they would be, and really encouraging and enforcing the ban on child labor. So while organized labor, these unions might not have had the most success at this time, the U.S. government is working to ensure that workers are being taken care of. Since all of us need some food, not only are workers being taken care of, but the food itself, most of the food that's being produced in the United States is going over to Europe. Farmers are increasing overall production by 30% of food during the war, and conservation of food is important. So the president introduces the idea of meatless days, the idea of porkless days, the idea of sweetless days, wheatless days, so that people that are in America are eating less food and eating less certain types of food, so that most of the food that's being produced in the country is being sent over to Europe. There's also an encouragement of Americans to create more gardens, which essentially, instead of having to go buy this mass-produced food in farms, Americans are just creating gardens in their own homes. Schools are creating gardens in the fields, so children are working in gardens in parks and fields. And it really allows the United States, where the food is being produced in mass quantities, to mostly send that food over to Europe to feed not only soldiers but our allies in Europe, while the Americans in the country can essentially kind of fend for themselves. Obviously, a war is going to cost a lot of money. During the time that the United States is at war, they enter the war in 1917, they spent $35 billion on the war, which certainly doesn't sound like a lot of money. In today's money, it's about $850 million. So for a rather short amount of time, the United States is in the war for about 2 years. They do spend a massive amount of money. To pay for that war, the United States increases taxes, not only just on individuals, but on things like alcohol and tobacco. A third of the money that is raised for the war comes from taxes. The rest of it is coming from the selling of bonds. So Americans buy bonds from the government, and they know that the government will pay them back with some interest added on. So to raise that money, those bonds are super important, so that they can pay for this war. And about 2/3 of the war effort come from American citizens themselves. Now, to encourage all of this to happen, to encourage people to build those gardens, to buy some bonds, to stop eating meat on certain days, the United States government resorts to propaganda. Now, to do that, they create something called the Committee on Public Information. And it distributes pamphlets, it creates posters, and in fact sends out thousands of volunteers that give speeches. They're called 4-Minute Men, and they give, in total, 7.5 million speeches around the country. So that if people aren't reading these posters or looking at them, there's people in their community that are talking about the efforts that are needed to help win this war against Germany, against Austria and Hungary, against these Central Powers. So all of this propaganda is certainly, there's a lot of things that are positive from it, really trying to cut back on waste, trying to have people build gardens. However, there are a lot of negative effects too. Americans are vehemently, in this propaganda, anti-German, and it's really threatening a lot of civil liberties and free speech. So Germans themselves, there's about 2 million German immigrants in America during World War I, so they face a lot of persecution. There's instances where Germans are beaten. There's one man who's killed So a lot of anti-German sentiment, and a lot of these Germans, virtually most of them, are not trying to support the war in Europe. However, there is that fear that they could. Thus, things like free speech are really curtailed and taken down. So we have something called the Espionage and Sedition Acts, where Americans could be fined up to $20,000 and put into jail for 20 years for a variety of things, from speaking out against the government, speaking out against the war effort, and really the United States is trying to figure out if people are being disloyal to the government and stop that from happening so that people cannot work against them and stop what's happening in Europe. Now, this is obviously a violation of the First Amendment. Free speech is a constitutional right of Americans, and imprisoning people for speaking their minds is illegal. However, at war, often this country gets a bit blinded, and a number of people, 2,000 people, are prosecuted. 1,000 people are convicted of crimes against this Espionage and Sedition Act, including some professors, union leaders. Eugene Debs is thrown into jail. He's one of the biggest union leaders in the country for trying to organize workers to go on strike. So you have a lot of problems in America that is created by this war. In addition to the fact that there's a movement to change the name of hamburgers to freedom burgers, because hamburgers in Germany, which is terrible. I mean, hamburgers are just lovely and tasty. Certainly they're not eliminating them. But a lot of central things to American society are changed by one. And not only is society being changed kind of by what you can say, what you can do in the workplace, but we do have a great change when it comes to just the population itself. With the war, most of the factories that are being built, or at least turned into munition factories, weapons factories, are in the north. And since more workers are needed to work these, we have a lot of, especially African Americans in the South, that are moving from the South to the North so that they can work in these factories. There are so many more jobs than there are in the South, especially because at this time there's a drought, there's a weevil infestation, and a lot of the cotton crops in the South are destroyed, leaving a lot of African Americans out of work. We also have, coupled with that, extreme discrimination against African Americans in the South, which has been going on since the Civil War. Well, going on since African Americans lived in the South. But especially with a lot of these Jim Crow laws that are in the South that are encouraging segregation and forcing segregation. So we have something called the Great Migration, where hundreds of thousands of African Americans move from the South to the North for hope of better treatment and better work opportunities, which really changes the nature of the nation. There is obviously a lot of problems that result in that, but it does get many African Americans a much better living situation. And final thing we're going to look at today is really just this idea of the flu. We are going to be talking about women in class this week for my students. So if you're like, what about women? Women certainly were affected greatly. I mean, some would argue that women, in fact, get the best deal out of World War I, that their situation improved the most. However, we're going to look at that in class, my students, so spoiler, or teaser, I guess. But there's also something called, well, you know what it is, it's the flu, which every year in the United States today kills 36,000 people. However, there is a terrible flu that arises in 1919. 500,000 Americans die in this flu. There is the thought that a lot of this flu is brought back from Europe by soldiers. But no matter what, 500,000 Americans die from this flu. Worldwide, 30 million people die. In comparison, during the Black Death, about 100 million people die. So, I mean, certainly not on Black Death levels, but we're talking about a massive death toll. So not only are people dying worldwide of this flu, but we do have tens of millions dying in Europe because of it. So, in the United States, we have some submarines attacking, namely just one submarine, shooting a few shells onto Nauset Beach. But for the most part, the United States is dramatically changed, even though war does not come to these shores.